Hey ladies, and welcome back to another week of Practices of a Safe Woman. Now this week I am so excited to talk to you about a topic which I'm very passionate about and passionate about other women implementing as well. And that is the concept of knowing/speaking your boundaries. Now, what do I mean by that? The concept of implementing guidelines and rules for myself in order to know when someone either becomes or does not become a threat. Now, what is an example that we can think of as a boundary? Now, we see them all the time in our regular life. We see them as a doorway, as a wall, as a guardrail, a fence, a gate, a locked door that needs a code. Something as simple as that. We set boundaries in our normal life. Why? So we know when people cross them. For instance, we have a front door for a reason. If I'm sitting in my living room and someone I don't know or don't want in my home opens and walks through my front door, what do I know? Hey, there's something going on here, right? So we set boundaries in our life all the time. And when it comes to our self-defense journey, that should be no different. We need to begin implementing rules and guidelines that'll help us know, like I said, when someone either becomes or does not become a threat. Now, a good example of this mentality is think of a house with a beautiful yard. And in this yard, you love to sunbathe on a hot day. You love to play with your kids, with your dog, maybe put up a tire swing on that big tree, maybe throw up a hammock. It's where you enjoy being outside. Now, what do we usually do with yards? We put up a fence, right? First of all, so that we can know, hey, this is the boundary between my home and my neighbor's home. Or this is how I can keep the ones I love safe, who don't know boundaries yet, who don't know when not to cross and when to not go in the road and things like that. But it's also a good way to keep danger out. Now, say you have this beautiful yard and for some reason your neighbor decides, I'm not going to respect that fence boundary line and I'm just going to come in your yard and do whatever I want, whenever I want, and however I want. Well, what is something that we're going to do? We're going to speak to that neighbor and say, hey, I've noticed you coming in and out of my yard whenever you want. I would really appreciate it if you'd stay on your side of the fence unless we invite you in. Now, you may have a neighbor who genuinely just doesn't think that it's a wrong thing. They may say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I thought we were cool like that. I thought, we had this great relationship. I'm so sorry. I will keep that in mind in the future. Or you may have a neighbor who just says, I don't care. I'm going to do whatever I want in your yard whenever I want. Well, their reaction to you speaking that boundary determines whether or not you deem them a threat or not a threat. When they say, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was an issue, I will respect it in the future, they're not a threat to you unless words don't match actions and they continue to do it anyway. If it's the neighbor who says, I don't care, I'm going to do whatever I want, that is your indicator that that individual does not have your good safety in mind. So a simple example like that is really what we need to be doing in our safety journey as well. So what does a boundary in our safety journey look like? Well, it could be something that's a guideline, a rule for yourself. It could be a dimensional boundary. If someone crosses so close to me, I need to speak with them. Or it could even be a physical boundary. An example of a rule, a guideline boundary would be, for instance, one of my own, which is if I'm in a grocery store and I'm checking out, making my way to my vehicle, and an individual, specifically a male, approaches me and wants to help me with my groceries, I'm going to politely say no. And why? Because I've read many stories about men who just want to help with groceries that haven't turned out well. Now, I'm going to do it politely, but it depends on their reaction, what my next reaction is going to be. If they say, oh, I'm so sorry, I'll respect your space, then I don't need to be worried about it because they probably just genuinely wanted to help me with my groceries. If it's someone who tries to make me feel badly and says, oh, come on, I'm just trying to help you, little lady. Your little weak arms can't carry that milk jug. Then I'm going to have to speak my boundary again. Hey, I appreciate the thought, but I'm good. Thank you for not helping me. Now, their reaction to that will determine my next step. If they bow out and they say, okay, fine, I will give in, then I know, hey, you know what? It's not an issue any longer. But if they continue to disrespect that boundary, that's when I have to communicate, hey, I've spoken to you twice. I've said no politely, and I've said no very matter-of-factly. If you continue to disrespect this boundary, I will need to talk to the manager of the store who may potentially need to get someone else involved. And if you disrespect that boundary, I will need to take further action. Now, if that doesn't speak clearly, you have a choice. Go away, or I will handle this situation myself. I don't know what does. So doing that will show someone, hey, I have rules that I follow and you are not allowed to cross them. But it also shows me if they're a threat or not. Now, that's just a rule, a guideline boundary. But what about a dimensional boundary? Now, let's just use the grocery store as an example again. Say we're grocery shopping and we're going in and out of the aisles, and there's just this one individual who's right on your heels the entire time. Maybe it's time to speak up. Maybe if they're just really in your personal space within that, maybe 3 foot, 5 foot boundary continuously. You said, hey, would you mind if I wait here and you just continue shopping ahead of me? I just noticed we keep running into each other a lot. And if they say, oh yeah, I noticed that too, I'll go ahead and get in front of you. Not a threat. But if it's someone who tries to make you feel stupid for that, then you're going to need to speak that boundary again. I said, hey, I'm just uncomfortable, okay? I really just need some personal space. Now, the pandemic is a really good way to get people to give you that distance. Hey, would you mind staying 6 feet away, right? Now, there may be genuinely people who just end up in the same aisle as you 100% of the time. It happens to me all the time. But there may be people who don't have that intent in mind and are really there just to follow you out of the store. So that's a dimensional boundary. But then let's look at physical boundaries. Now, myself, I'm not a very touchy person, and I don't usually welcome touch openly. There are very few people in my life that I'm very physical with, and most of them are either my husband, my family, or some very few friends in my life. Now, if I am touched inappropriately in my mind, which is not necessarily inappropriate for you, but maybe it's just not appropriate for me, and I say, hey, I've noticed you put your hand on my back a lot, and while you probably don't mean anything by it, it really makes me uncomfortable. Would you mind working on that in the future? Don't have to be rude about it, but I do need to speak it because I am uncomfortable. Now, it may just be a person who's more touchy than me. They may be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean anything by it. Great, let's just work on it in the future. And it's over, right? That person's not a threat. But say that's a person who doesn't care. Oh, come on, it's just a touch on the back. It's not a big deal. Then I know and should not be surprised if that individual tries anything further that I might find uncomfortable or even disrespectful. What needs to happen in that place? After I've spoken that boundary, maybe I give him one more chance. Hey, I said don't touch my back. Do it again, and I'm going to need to take care of it. Or, hey, we can't hang out anymore until you respect my boundary. Now, it doesn't need to come across rude, but it does need to be said. Why? Because if we don't choose to respect that fence line, and we don't make them respect that fence line, they're getting into our safe and our personal and our secure part of ourselves. So that's an idea of a physical boundary. So boundaries are important in life in general. We set boundaries with what time we need to go to bed, what time we need to get up. We kick people out of the house very graciously when it's about our bedtime on a weeknight, right? So it shouldn't be any different with our safety journey. Because in fact, boundaries are what's going to set us up for success in the future. Speaking a boundary, speaking it again, and then giving them the option to continue or to not may mean, hey, you cross this boundary, it means I need to get my big dog voice. You need to listen. Maybe it's, hey, maybe we just need to step away. Maybe we just need to not hang out. Maybe it's a de-escalation. Maybe it's, you come any closer to me after I've spoken to you, I will pepper spray you. Maybe it's even beyond that. Hey, I said do not cross me any further, and I might use a type of tool I don't want to use. Now, you wouldn't speak it, hey, I don't want to use this on you, but in your mind, do you really want to get to that tool? No, but they've crossed the boundary. They've shown you they don't care, and they've shown you that their intentions are way more important than your safety. So ladies, these boundaries is what's going to help us understand when our next steps of our safety journey become necessary, when big dog voice, when situational awareness speaking, when using non-lethal or lethal tools. It's so important we understand this topic so that we can build upon it in the future. Now, I look forward to just continuing this journey with you. I look forward to our next topic, which is going to be knowing your normal and how to react to it.